All right, so today we're going to be solving multi-step equations. And so up here on the board, it says to solve each equation. And if you look up here, this is a little different than what we did yesterday. Okay, it's different because instead of having one step, we're now going to have more than one step. And so how would I solve that equation? What would I do? Yeah?
Add 4 to each side.
I'd add 4 to each side. So now the whole goal, if you remember, is to get x all by itself. Okay, so the number that's attached with the x, that's the very last thing you're going to do. You're going to get rid of everything else first. And so on the left side, I'm now left with 11x. What happened to the negative 4 and the positive 4? They cancel, right? So then I have 29 plus 4, which is 33. So now this is a problem like what you had yesterday. And how are you going to solve that? Divide by 11. And so when I divide by 11, I get x to equal 3. Okay, multi-step equation. All right, with that in mind, there you go. Okay, 5n plus 8 equals 33. 5n plus 8 equals 33. And the answer is 5. Nice job. Okay, so how we get that is we're going to go and subtract 8 from both sides. And I end up getting 5n to equal 25. When I do that, I divide by 5, and I get n to equal 5. So let's look at the next problem. N plus 7 over 8 equals 5. N plus 7 over 8 equals 5. So what's the very first thing I'm going to do here?
Times by 8.
I'm going to times by 8. Okay, I don't want to subtract 7 yet because the 7 is actually kind of paired with the n right now. Okay, and so now what I'm going to do is multiply both sides by 8. And when I do that, those cancel. It leaves you with n plus 7 equals 40. So then now what do? Subtract 7. So when I subtract 7, I end up getting n to equal 33. Alrighty, so with that in mind, I want you to go ahead and solve this one. N plus 1 divided by negative 2 equals 15. So the answer is negative 31. Nice job. Okay, where we get that is we're just going to go ahead and multiply both sides by negative 2. So you end up getting n plus 1 equals negative 30. When you subtract 1 from both sides, you end up getting negative 31. Okay. All right, so now we're getting to some word problems that deal with multi-step equations. And so if you notice, this says, a music store has sold 3/5 of their hip-hop CDs, but 10 were returned. Now the store has 62 hip-hop CDs. How many were there originally? So, ideas. Yeah.
62 times 3/5 plus 10.
Okay, close. Okay, we're actually going to do the plus 10. You're right on that with the return, and that was a great thought. Okay, they sold 3/5. Now the key word here is of. What does of mean you do? Times. And we don't know how many total hip hop CDs they have. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call that H. So 3/5 of the total amount. Okay. Now I'm going to write this a little bit different because I know 3/5 of the total amount is going to equal something. Now I got to figure out what it's going to equal. What do you think that's going to equal? Just a thought. Yep.
62 plus 10.
62 plus 10. Right. Okay. 3/5 times H equals 62 plus 10. Now there's another way you could do this. You could take 3/5 of the hip hop CDs, subtract your 10 since those were returned, and that could equal 62 as well. Okay, so that's another way. I kind of like this way better, the 62 plus the 10, because to me that just kind of seems to make a little bit more sense. But like I said, either way is fine. So now to solve this, I know that I've got 3/5 H equals what? 72. How do you solve that now? Yeah. Yep.
3/5.
Which is?
5/3.
Perfect. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 5/3. Essentially, you're dividing by 3/5. We're just cutting out that step of writing it down. That's why we multiply by the reciprocal. We're saving ourselves a little bit of time. So H equals. Now this is the problem. What I would do if I were you, 3 goes into 24. How many times? 24. It's going to be a lot easier for us to do 24 times 5 than it is for us to do 72 times 5 divided by 3. Okay, so let's do 24 times 5. When I do that, what do I get? Okay, 0 carry 2, 120. So we have a total of 120 CDs. Okay, let's look at another one of those. And in fact, this is one you're going to do. Len read 3/4 of a graphic novel over the weekend. On Monday, he read 22 more pages. If he has read 222 pages, how many pages does the book have? So I'm going to give you a hint. This part of the equation is going to be pages he has read. So let's start. On the weekend, he read what? 3/4 of what? The book. So let's just call it P for pages. Okay. Then what do I do with the Monday information? I add it to 22. Okay, so that's what he read. That equals something. I'm going to let you figure out what it equals. I want you to solve it, enter your answer in on the expression. I'll go ahead and send it to you now so some of you can enter in. So let's see what we all have. 264. Nice job. Okay, what we needed to do there is we needed to go ahead and set it equal to 220. Okay, first thing to do is subtract 22. When you subtracted 22, you should get 3/4 P equals 198. Your next step is to then multiply by the reciprocal, which is 4/3. Biggest thing here, if you end up getting a decimal, you better go back and check your work. Okay, because you can't have a decimal for the number of pages. So that's kind of one of those things that you've done something wrong. And so if I take 192 times 4/3, 3 goes into 198 66 times. Okay, and so really you have 66 times 4, which comes out to be 264 pages. All right, now this next slide is going to be something that you're going to want to get down. Now, you don't necessarily have to write even integers, odd integers, but what you need to write down is consecutive integers, n plus 1, n plus 2. For consecutive evens, notice you can just put consecutive evens. You don't have to say consecutive even integers. n plus 2, n plus 4. Consecutive odds, n plus 2, n plus 4. Now, we're going to talk about those in a little bit, but I need you to get those down. This is something that will follow you through all the way to Algebra 2. Okay, consecutive integers, consecutive evens, and consecutive odds.
What are the last two?
I'll take care of that. Just write it down. Now, when we think about consecutive integers, examples would be 3, 4, 5. You know, 7, 8, 9, 10. They're numbers that are kind of all in a row. All right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write expressions for what each of those are. So if I start with 6, I find the next integer by adding 1. Right? And then to find the next one, I take n, which is 6, and I add 2. So it's kind of one of those things. The next one would be n plus 3. Then n plus 4. All right, now when we get to evens and odds, you're going to notice they are the same. And for some reason, this is one of those things that perplexes a lot of people because they're like, whoa, 2 and 4 aren't odd numbers. Okay? And you're right, they're not. But this is the thing. The 2 and the 4 don't refer to odd. Okay? I want you to think of the first 3 odds. What are the first 3 odd numbers? 1, 3, 5. How far apart are each of those numbers? 2. That's what the 2 and the 4 refer to. They don't refer to the numbers themselves. They refer to the spacing. Okay? They refer to the spacing. A lot of people like to write it this way. n plus 1, n plus 3. Okay? What does that say the spacing is between these two? 1. Really? Okay. So the important thing you need to remember is that the 2 and the 4 refer to spacing, and the odds are always 2 apart. Just like the evens are always 2 apart. So the biggest thing you need to remember is that when you deal with evens and odds, you're going to use the exact same thing. So let's go ahead and look at an example of this. It says find 3 consecutive integers with a sum of 21. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to write the 3 consecutive integers just for my own little peace of mind. There's the first 3 consecutive integers, n, n plus 1, and n plus 2. Now notice what it says. It says find 3 consecutive integers with a sum. What does sum mean that you do? Add them. So basically, I'm going to take n plus 1 plus n plus 2, and that's going to equal 21. So let's add those together. So I'm looking for like terms. How many n is this? 1. How many do I have now? How many do I have now? So really I have 3n. Let's look at what else I have. What does that give me? So I have 3n plus 3 equals 21. So now this is just an equation that we looked at earlier today. We need to solve. What's the first thing you do?
Yep.
Subtract 3. So I get 3n to equal what? 18. What do you do now? Divide by 3. And what do you get n to equal? 6. Now notice what the instructions say. Find 3 consecutive integers. 6 is my first. My next one is 7. My next one is 8. Those are your answers.
Is it always like increase?
All right, so let's look at another one. Last one today. Find 3 consecutive odds with a sum of negative 51. So I'm going to write odds. What do I know odds are? N, and then what? N plus 2 and n plus 4, because I remember that the 2 refers to spacing. They are 2 apart. So with the sum of 51, or negative 51, so I have n plus 2 plus n plus 4 equals negative 51. So what do I do now? Yep, so let's go. Oh, whoa, that's weird. Holy buckets. Let's just like undo that real quick. There we go. Oh, so let's go ahead and add those together, and what do you get? Okay, 3n, the pen is acting up, so that means it's time to end. Plus what? 6, and what's that going to equal? Negative 51. What do you do now? Subtract 6, so you get 3n to equal what, folks? Negative 57. So when, yep, you already got it. So n is, when you divide by 3, negative 19. So now we're going to do consecutive odds. Negative 19 is your first one. What's your next one going to be? Negative 17, and then negative 15, because you always increase. So with the negatives, think about it this way. If you took negative 19 and you added 2, you would get negative 17, and then negative 15. Okay, tomorrow we're going to have a worksheet and a quiz over section 2-3 as well. And so what I need you to do for tomorrow is this, pages 94 and 95, 12 through 50, the evens.